Hello everyone, welcome back to On The Fly. Today we're going to be recapping the World Junior Championship happening in Halifax and Moncton. That's the 2023 championship. So with that being said, a great tournament overall, and we'll get into the games in just a little bit here. But I want to sort of talk about the tournament as a whole, and it's probably one of the best tournaments we've seen in a long time. Probably one of the closest. You look up and down the list, and each team beat each team for the most part. And there was some big upsets, there were some expected results, but at the same time, the competition this year was a lot closer than we've ever seen it. So I do hope that that continues as we move ahead in this World Junior Tournament, just reflective of how how international hockey as a whole has been improving, and I can't wait to see where it is in 10 years' time, where who knows, maybe we'll see a completely different top four than what we normally see. But with that being said, we'll hop into the games from today. And we'll start off with the bronze medal game, a little bit less interesting than the gold, but at the same time, boy, was this game ever a doozy. The final score was 8-7 for the U.S. over the Swedes in overtime. And when we look at that, it's not football, it's not a touchdown and a extra point against a touchdown and a 2-point convert. Nope, it is 8-7 in hockey. So this game was a absolute sort of like a mess, you could call it, but it was just a back and forth game where neither team really wanted to defend. They were looking for their own goals, and I mean, I get it. At this point, the bronze isn't as flashy as the gold, especially with two teams, with the US and the Swedes, battling it out, two teams that are probably the best there for the most part, with the exception of the other top two. Those teams had it right up until the end. They could have went either way, but at the end of the day, the U.S. took it 8-7. Both backup goalies were used in this game, yes, and when that happens, typically you know something's going wrong. And for both teams, I mean, it was right back and forth, right up to the end, 32 seconds, Sweden tied it, and then finally the U.S. won it, and really was a great game for the entirety of it. You never knew what was going to happen. You knew someone was going to score next, and it just happened to be the U.S. winning the bronze medal this year. But with that, we'll move on to the big game, and we all know where this is going, with Canada beating the Czechs 3-2 in overtime. And in this game, it was definitely an interesting game. So the first two periods, Canada started off a little rough, and what happened was they took a bad penalty off the start, as they typically do. They played mediocre for the most part. Czechs sort of played with them for the first 5 minutes, and then Canada played their game for the next sort of two periods until the third period rolled around. First 10 minutes, really, really good. Then all of a sudden, the Czechs kick a puck at the blue line. Could have been ruled offside. Canada decides not to challenge it. They score a goal. Then all of a sudden, the Czechs put another one in probably, 50 seconds-ish later. And then all of a sudden, it's tied 2-2, and then the nerves start to go. And Canada looked nervous. You could tell that they were on their heels. The Czechs were really into the game. Canada was on the bench. You could see they were dejected from it. But at the same time, they made it to the overtime period. And as I like to say, in overtime, anything can happen. And if it makes it to a shootout, which there was no shootout this year, thankfully, anything can happen. So as soon as it went to overtime, it was anybody's game. They were able to reset. They got the flood. They got to go back into their dressing room, relax, recharge, reset. And you could tell Canada looked like the better team as soon as that puck dropped for the overtime period. Milic looked pretty good. Suchanek looked really good as well. And he even got hurt. The Czech goalie, Suchanek, got hurt right off the top. Well, sort of first-ish period. So he was on a bad leg pretty much the entire game. That goal got called back. But at the same time, 2-2 going into overtime, and Canada, I'll show you the video here of our reaction, but it was a much-needed victory for Canada. They deserved it from pretty much the start up until about the 10-minute mark in the third. But with that, I'll let you see our reaction to the goal from Dylan Gunther.
Be there, 2-on-1, come on, come on! Yeah! Yeah! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby! Let's go! Woo! Let's go! Let's go! Gold medal, let's go! Woo!
So yes, very, very exciting, very happy. And one of the big parts was to be honest, I expected Canada to lose that. All the momentum was in the Czechs' direction, and then all of a sudden they started clawing back, and I was like, okay, Canada's got it. But in overtime, it really is anyone's game, and at that point, a lot of momentum still against you, and at the end of the day, Canada pulled it off. All credit to them, but nonetheless, it was definitely a scary time. So with that being said, that was the game. Canada wins 3-2 in overtime, thanks to that Dylan Guenther's goal. But at the same time, it was a really excellent game overall. Both games today were incredible to watch, and you could really just tell that's the World Juniors right there. Going into overtime in both medal games, that's what the juniors are all about. But with that, the final rankings we have here is Canada in first, Czechs in second, the U.S. in third place, and it is, as much as it is normal to see that sort of top three, the Czechs, I mean, they haven't been to the gold medal game since 2001 when they won, and then they went back-to-back zeros and ones. But at the same time, the Czechs are relatively new to this. They don't win that often, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them back next year doing even better. And one of the big things with the Czechs, they surprised a lot of people at this tournament. They surprised me. I wrote them off right off the top. In my introduction video, I even said, they won't see much of a challenge. Canada won't see much of a challenge until they play the Swedes on December 31st. And sure enough, Boxing Day came around and boom, it was all gloves off. And all of a sudden, Canada was losing, and you could tell the Czechs looked like the better team the entire game. Wake-up call for Canada. They needed it. Fortunately, you can only beat Canada in the games that don't matter. Canada wins gold this year. Czechs win silver, still an amazing accomplishment for the Czechs. U.S. win the bronze. Sweden comes in fourth. We have in fifth place, we have Finland. Sixth place, Slovakia. Seventh place, Switzerland. Eighth place, Germany. Ninth place, we have Latvia. In the relegation, who's getting kicked out of the tournament this year, we have poor Austria. So with that being said, a really good tournament. I'll sort of just go over. So the MVP and most valuable player and most valuable forward of the tournament by the IIHF delegates or something. They make up their own names nowadays. I don't know why. But we have Connor Bedard winning both the forward and the most valuable player. Most valuable defenseman is David Jiricek from the Czech Republic, from Czechia. And lastly, the most valuable goalie was Adam Gajan from Slovakia. And I mean, these guys definitely deserved it. Jiricek pretty much put Czechia on his back for the most part. He got them to this point with Kulich. But at the same time, they definitely earned both their goalies and Connor Bedard, they all earned these awards. Adam Gajan, number one, he's practically single-handedly beat the U.S. And sure, it was, 6-3 or something like that. But at the end of the day, he's the one that kept them in the game the entire time. If any other goalie was in there, I think the U.S. would have put in a few more. He almost beat Canada single-handedly as well. And he pushed that game to overtime. It could have been a lot worse. Nonetheless, Adam Gajan wins your most valuable goalie. Jiricek put Czechs on his back, and then we have Connor Bedard, who really needs no introduction at this tournament, 22 points, and it was pretty close to the record at 32. So with that being said, a excellent tournament for all three of those players. Definitely well earned. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant just about what happened in this tournament and why I think it's actually really good. Maybe it's one of those positive rants, it's not a negative rant, but at the same time, when we look at this ranking, right? Even the bottom teams, Latvia put up an impressive performance against the U.S., for example, right? You look through this list of who's on the top, who's on the bottom, and each one of these teams contended with someone at some point. The Slovaks in sixth place, they beat the U.S., they almost beat Canada. The Swiss, they beat Finland. We never see Finland lose. Finland lost to the Swedes this year, where, I mean, let's be honest, Swedes and Finland are pretty much neck and neck and everything. Even the 8th place spot with Germany. Germany went right up against the Swedes, 1-0 final. Germany was nice and close with the Swedes. Sure, the other games weren't quite as close, but at the same time, we look up and down here. Canada lost this year. We never see Canada lose in the preliminary round, much less to the Czechs, which was a surprise to, I think, everyone. And it was just a really, really good tournament overall, and I really look forward to seeing what's going to go on next year. Slovakia, and then Finland, who was dethroned this year, we never see them lose as bad as they did. And the Swiss won 3 times, and still they were the 4th spot in the group, which is extremely surprising for one. And the fact that they have the ability to win 3 games and still be pretty much the bottom of their group is impressive. At the end of the day, it is impressive. And I think this tournament has a lot of potential. It's no longer just, Canada winning gold every single year. This is the first real year where I think we can sort of look on it and say, yeah, there might be a few other teams other than the normal sort of candidates that might be able to knock Canada off. And we were this close. We really were this close to having Slovakia beat Canada. One bounce away, one non-Thomas Milic miracle away from Slovakia beating Canada, knocking them out in the quarterfinals. And then who knows what Slovakia does from there. And really, really just an impressive tournament all around. I look forward to seeing where it's going to be in 5-10 years' time. But with that, at the same time, I just want to say a big thank you to all of you, helping the channel, helping everyone, and coming out to the live streams too. Those have been fun to do. Great to have all you guys out. And if you want to see our reactions, all 3 games, the quarterfinals, the semis, and the finals, are all up. They're all live in the live reactions folder, which will be posted at the end of the video or in the description below. But with that being said, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, if you really like to consider subscribing, tell all your friends and comment down below your thoughts on the 2023 World Junior Championship. Until next time.